All right, guys, thanks for coming. My name is Chris Parenti, Parente. To my left is Mike Gallagher. To his left is Damon Sharonis. And we have Miramar Martinez here as well. You know, I think everyone saw that the U.S. Attorney's Office, after months of refusing to disclose the evidence, last night to sort of take the sting out of things, released it, which is somewhat ironic given the fact that they fought for weeks to avoid having that happen. I wish it didn't take hours of my time filing motions and a tongue lashing from a federal judge for the U.S. Attorney's Office to do the right thing, but they finally did it. You guys got to see a lot of it last night, not everything. You'll see some stuff in our presentation today that's different. But I think, you got to see why it matters that people can actually see the real evidence as opposed to the false claims by our government. I mean, we live in a strange time right now where we cannot trust our federal government. I've never lived through anything like that. Miramar has never lived through something like that. This is a time where we just cannot trust the words of our federal officials, and that's disappointing. So today we kind of want to go through some of the key evidence in this case now that it's released and now that we can actually talk about it and show you why we knew from the beginning that this would never result in a conviction, that we were going to either head towards a not guilty verdict by the jury or the U.S. Attorney's Office would do the right thing and dismiss the case, which they eventually did. All right, so let's see. So the first lie, which I think everyone now knows and which the judge kind of harped on when she kind of reprimanded the U.S. Attorney's Office for refusing to kind of untie our hands, is that Miramar is a domestic terrorist. I think you guys have seen her enough. You know her story. She's the farthest thing from a domestic terrorist that anyone can be, and it's why we've continued to fight this. Most people, after their criminal indictment has been dismissed, would stop fighting. But to have your own government call you something as hurtful and as harmful as a domestic terrorist when you know you're not is just unacceptable, and it's why Miramar instructed her team to continue to fight, to continue to push back against the U.S. Attorney's Office, to continue to push back against Kristi Noem, and that's why we did that. So from the beginning, right, from I think within an hour of the actual incident, DHS branded her a domestic terrorist. The same thing they did to Renee Good, the same thing they did to Mr. Preddy. Kash Patel, again, this is still up. Like, the director of the FBI has still not removed this tweet, which again brands Miramar as a domestic terrorist and links the wrong incident. And despite, as you can see at the bottom, the Twitter warning that this is not true. How can we have an FBI director who continues to put out false information to the American public and won't change it even after the Department of Justice comes out and says, this isn't right. We're not going to pursue these charges. As a former federal prosecutor, it's extremely disappointing. As a person who is still friends with current FBI agents, it is extremely upsetting that the FBI director will not remove this tweet and help clear Miramar's name. The truth is, as you guys know, she's a U.S. citizen. She was born and raised here in Chicago. She has no criminal history, never even a parking ticket before this happened. And she's a Montessori school teacher who spends her days teaching kids of this district life skills. And on the day in question, she was on her way to donate clothes on a Saturday morning to her local church. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Again, I think ICE was hoping that they would get some radical individual so that they could, support some of their false claims, but they picked the wrong victim in this case to mess with. Here she is at work. Again, she spends every day at a Montessori school teacher, not wherever people who are actual domestic terrorists spend their days. She teaches the children. At her initial appearance, we had over a dozen Montessori school parents who showed up to federal court in support of her. I was able to give the court over 50 letters from parents who turned them over to me within maybe 10 hours, saying how empathetic she is, how loving she is, how much a part of the community she is. Again, the exact opposite of a domestic terrorist. Here's a photo that we can now show people. It's the back of her car. That black bag was the bag of clothes that she had collected that morning that she was on her way to deliver. It's now covered with her blood, but you can see it here. Once we get the car back from the FBI, Miramar intends to finish delivering those clothes to her local church. Once we obviously make sure they're not blood soaked, but I think they're okay inside there. But again, just a visual depiction of the shot-out window, which we'll get to, by Agent Exum, and where she was actually going that day. Lie number 2. Miramar has a history of doxing federal agents. So this was a repeated refrain from the administration, and this is where, again, I'm very upset with the U.S. Attorney's Office, because you have this quote here, right? This was a direct quote put out by Tricia McLaughlin, the Assistant Secretary of DHS, quoting Miramar Martinez. Hey, to all my gang, let's fuck those motherfuckers up. Don't let them take anyone, right? That is an extremely aggressive quote. That actually might support a claim that someone is a domestic terrorist, someone who's calling for violence against ICE agents. The problem is, and the U.S. Attorney's Office knows that, in the discovery, which we'll release today, which I don't think was part of last night's release, someone did say this quote, but it was not Miramar Martinez. It was another individual completely unrelated to Miramar Martinez that came up in an ICE report. So here you have the U.S. Attorney's Office has discovery in their possession. They know that this quote was attributed by their own law enforcement sources to a third party that has nothing to do with Miramar. And yet, not only do they not correct their client, ICE, not only do they not tell the court that this is not correct, but they try to enforce a protective order to not allow us to show the media, look, if you actually look at where this statement came from, it is somebody that is not Miramar Martinez. That's the scary part, right? Again, this isn't some local press person. This is Tricia McLaughlin. She is the Assistant Secretary. She's attributing a quote calling for violence against federal law enforcement to a Montessori school teacher when they have a report that shows they were either too careless to read it or they just didn't care and they wanted to feed this false narrative that they continue to put out that anyone who gets into any kind of traffic incident with ICE is a domestic terrorist. So if you don't I don't think you guys have this. We'll release this right after the press conference. It's a heavily redacted report, but if you call the U.S. Attorney's Office, they will confirm, I believe, that this was not Miramar Martinez. It was a third person, someone else in Chicago who was under investigation, had nothing to do with her. Why they never corrected that from the beginning is beyond me. Why, when anybody calls DHS, they say we stand by all of our statements and won't retract this is beyond me. But we need to demand better from our elected leaders and unelected leaders that you cannot put out false statements like this. The truth is she has no history and she's never doxed law enforcement. Again, they point to this LOL statement that she put that somebody linked one of these ICE agents to his DJ page, which again is not doxing, it's public business. It probably actually sent him business to the extent it did anything. But Miramar was one of hundreds of people who liked it or shared it on these groups. Lie number 3, Miramar rammed the agents. You guys have now all seen the video, so you know that she didn't ram them, that they rammed her or sideswiped her. You can see it clearly in the video that the agent swerved into Miramar's car. You can see him turn left. There's a 302 that I do not think the U.S. Attorney's Office released that we will release in Agent Exum's interview with the FBI immediately after this happened. He tells the FBI agent who's interviewing him, I veered into her to create space. Okay? That is completely inconsistent with Miramar hitting them. That's consistent with him hitting her. The U.S. Attorney's Office knew this from the beginning. ICE knew this from the beginning. Yet they continue, as recently as yesterday, to put out press statements saying that Miramar rammed them, which is just absolute not true. How do I play this?
Yes, let's see here. So this is the body-worn camera video from the agent in the back seat. Some of you have seen it. Let's see what it is.
All right, it's time to get aggressive and get the fuck out. They're just trying to box us in.
We're going to make contact. We're boxed in.
We are boxed in.
So a few things about this. One, I know we're all debating whether ICE should have body cameras. Obviously, we think they should. Here, Agent Exum had a body camera, as well as the other agent. Neither of them had it turned on at the time, right? Had they actually turned on the cameras that we paid for them to have, all of this could have been avoided, because you would have clearly seen that she never drove at this agent and that he shot her as she went by. But Agent Exum never bothered to turn on the camera that the government paid for him to have. So while we debate nationally whether ICE agents should have body cameras, which I think we all think they should, we need to make sure that they're instructed to hit the on switch, because Agent Exum was outfitted with one on this day, and he just never turned it on, as well as the other agent in the car. The other thing is, when you watch these videos, you can see these agents are going down Kedzie here in Chicago Saturday morning with heavily, these are automatic weapons, their fingers are on the triggers. You know, one pothole, one kind of swerve by this agent, and anyone on the sidewalk is getting sprayed with bullets. Again, why they're doing this on a beautiful Saturday morning and on the south side of Chicago is beyond me, but they're certainly not making our community safer, and in fact, they're making it worse. You guys know this, or at least those who were following, but even Agent Exum admitted that there was no ramming here, and yet again, our government continues to put out statements as late as yesterday and the day before that Miramar rammed them, which is not true. I was able to question Agent Exum at the destruction of evidence hearing. I asked him, will we both agree that there was no ramming here? Is that fair to say? And Agent Exum said, yes, by my definition, yes, sir. Great, mine too. So, again, are they not even talking to their own agents before they put out these statements? It appears to be so. Lie number 4. And this is a big one, right? Because this is what they had to do to justify the shoot, right? They had to say, why did you shoot this woman, right? The whole point was always we were boxed in. We couldn't move our vehicle. We knew from the beginning, because of our investigators who were able to get videos that even the U.S. Attorney's Office wasn't able to get, that this simply was not true. They were never boxed in and that they were always able to move. Yet they continued to repeat the refrain to the American public because they have this Trump mentality that regardless of whether it's true or false, if you say it enough, some people will believe it, and that's true. If you read the comments online, some people to this day believe that they were boxed in and couldn't move, despite there being a video showing that that's not true. So this was a drawing that was drawn by one of the agents when they were interviewed by the FBI immediately after. So, like, if this were true, then they would actually be telling you guys the truth that they were boxed in. These are supposed to be 3 cars that were in front of the... These are 3 cars that they drew in there, right? In reality, you guys have seen the video. I'll show it here in a second. Those cars don't exist. They weren't there. If they were there, they would have been boxed in. If they were there, they would have been unable to move. That's why the agent drew it, right? Because he knew we just shot a woman. We need to justify that shooting. And how else am I going to protect my partner, Agent Exum, for jumping out of a car and shooting someone within 2 seconds unless I can say we were boxed in? But in fact, when you see the video, those cars don't exist. And yet this administration continues to repeat these lies that they were boxed in. This is the agent's statement. The QFR Tahoe could not go forward, and the QFR team decided to exit the car so they could leave the area or make an arrest. I mean, that is a statement by one federal agent to the FBI within hours of the actual incident, lying about what happened. I mean, they could not go forward is simply not true. And you know it's not true because this is the video. Oops, how do I play this?
Let's see if we get this one going. We got my tech guy here. Thomas, what do you got here? Laptop? So this is from Mario's Tire Shop.
There you go.
Here, play.
So watch this video, right? 1 car gone, 2 car clearly gone. I mean, they're not stopping, they're not slowing down, they're out of the picture. Here's the agent's vehicle. So if you go back to that drawing that the agent did, there's nobody in front of them. How can they claim they couldn't go forward? We just saw that those cars ahead of them went forward. They drew those cars in to justify a bad shooting. The U.S. Attorney's Office knew about this. They didn't have this video, but they had that drawing, and once they saw this, they knew that those cars didn't exist. Yet nobody corrected the record. Nobody told the judge that this was wrong. Nobody amended the complaint to change this. I mean, these are officers of the court. They have a duty of candor to the court, and yet they allowed this to occur when you can clearly see those 3 cars that were put there by agents just simply did not exist. And again, that was the most frustrating part of this case. Things like this, that even the most far right-wing people, you can't argue that this is this is a gray area. This just is simply black and white. They drew a picture saying they were trapped when they weren't. Lie 5, Agent Exum told the FBI that all 5 shots went through the windshield. Again, if you're trying to justify a bad shoot of Mrs. Martinez, right, the best way to do it is to say she drove straight at me and I shot 5 times through the windshield. Again, if that were true, they might have a point, but that's not true, and we know that's not true. So Agent Exum texted this to friends in the media. This is the day of the shooting. More later, this is posse chat, him and his other Border Patrol agents that have a support group text chain on an encrypted app. More later, but I fired 5 rounds into the windshield of the vehicle. I mean, that's a flat-out lie. And again, the U.S. Attorney's Office recognized they can never call this guy as a witness in trial because the jury wouldn't believe a word he said for reasons like this. He's interviewed by the FBI immediately thereafter. The FBI at that time was doing their job and actually investigating whether this was a good shooting. Exum then drew his handgun and discharged it 5 times through the windshield, right? That is a very specific claim, and that's an important claim because if he actually did that, then that might show that she was actually driving at him. But we know from the evidence that we can now talk about, that's not what happened. We know that 3 shots, and remember, she's a car length away from this guy, and he's a firearms instructor. If she's truly driving right at him, you're going to have all 5 shots straight through the driver's side of the windshield. But what do you have? Because she's not driving at him, she's driving away from him. You have 3 bullets on the passenger side, right? Again, firearms instructor, she's less than a car length away from him. He can't be that bad of a shot. What is happening is she's driving away from him. Regardless, it's only 3 shots, not 5 shots. We know that bullet 4 kicks out the rear passenger window. Again, shows that he's lying about 5 shots through the windshield and that she's already passed him. And then we know this shot went from the back to the front, so it comes through here, and we'll get a ballistics report of this eventually to everybody. And then it comes out here, and you can, again, clearly see, even with the naked eye, and again, I think, my guess is this is what the prosecutor saw and realized that they had real problems with their witness, and which is why this case was referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office in South Bend, Indiana, for a criminal investigation of Agent Exum. It's because of this. From the naked eye, you can see the bullet went back to front, which is not only inconsistent with his statement to the FBI that all 5 shots went through the windshield, but it's also extremely troubling that he's shooting at a fleeing vehicle, which is a violation of the Border Patrol's published use of force policy.
And one thing I wanted to interject, you'll receive a video from the Mario's tire shop, and what that video is going to show is going to show Marmir's car actually jumping up on the curb as she's fleeing from being shot and coming back onto the road. So that's something you'll be able to see. You have to slow it down, you have to pay attention, you have to look at it, but you'll see that shows she's driving away from Agent Exum, not towards him in any way, shape, or form, as consistent with the shots and the patterns of those shots.
Okay, lie number 6, and we're almost done, I think. Miramar was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. Again, this is sort of playing with words as this government does, apparently, and how they try to justify the shooting. The truth is, she has no criminal history that you guys know. She had a valid CCL. She's a young single woman who lives in Chicago, where many people are armed. And her handgun was in her purse, never taken out. Agents never said she took it out. Never a claim that it was brandished. It was in the bottom of her purse. You can see it here, inside a snapped pink holster where it always stays. So, again, you have a government trying to set up this narrative. Hey, she's a domestic terrorist. She's got no dynamite in the car. There's no suicide vest. There is a gun in her purse. Let's try to slander her that way. The problem is, again, you can't just make stuff up by saying she's armed, right? This is a firearm that she has a license for that's always in her purse and that was never taken out. And when law enforcement went back to her car, pursuant to a search warrant, they found it exactly where it was all day that morning, where it always is, which was at the bottom of her purse. And again, when they tried to detain Miramar at the initial hearing as a danger to the community, and keep in mind, had they won that argument, Miramar would have been in federal prison for this entire time period while we fought to kind of exonerate her. The judge asked the federal prosecutor at the time, "Is this, did she brandish it?" And he said, "No, Your Honor." But again, that doesn't change the DHS narrative of let's keep putting out to Fox News and everybody else that she was an armed individual, because that really helps sell the false domestic terrorist label. Lie 7, that ICE has a respect for life policy. The government says that we're trying to embarrass Agent Exum. That's not what we're trying to do at all. I didn't write the text for Agent Exum. He wrote them, right? All we're doing is showing the American people that this agency that is allegedly coming to all of our towns and will continue to come to our towns going forward as long as Trump remains in office, is that they're hiring people who have this mindset. I mean, these are their private texts. Remember, Agent Exum testified that posse group, this text group that he's in, is other Border Patrol agents, and that this is the conversation these people are having. So this statement that ICE has a respect for human life and the safety of communities we serve, it will guide their employees in the performance of their duties, is absolutely false. And we've seen it's false, not only with the shooting of Miramar, but with the shooting of Miss Good, with the shooting of Mr. Preddy, and with the shooting of Severio Gonzalez here in Chicago as well. I mean, they're not living by this policy. Agents are, encouraged, celebrated, and rewarded for shooting protesters, right? I mean, you've seen that in this case by surviving in a way that Miss Good and Mr. Preddy could not, or Mr. Gonzalez could not. Miramar was able to get discovery in this case that shows you exactly how this agency handles a shooting in the immediate aftermath, and it is scary. You guys saw the email yesterday from Chief Bavino. I mean, that email, which we'll get to, was sent 4 hours after the shooting of Miramar, right? She's in the hospital. They don't know whether she's going to live or die. And this guy is emailing the agent without any investigation done yet, promoting him, extending his retirement age, saying, great job on this, right? What did he do? He shot somebody. That's it. That's the only job that Bovino knew that he did. They don't know whether Miramar is going to live or die, and he's being promoted. I mean, that's disgusting. And that does not line up with a respect for human life policy that they publish. And you guys have seen this, these texts by the agent. Again, this is just one agent, unfortunately, of many who apparently share these same thoughts. People text him, is this going to come back to bite you? Oh, well, it is what it is. Shit happens. I mean, again, these are federal agents that are presumably still out there patrolling the streets. Damn it, good shooting. LOL, gracias. Again, the use of the Spanish gracias is interesting here. FAFO means fuck around and find out. Making fun of Chicago, calling it Chirac. I mean, the people who are making it Chirac are a bunch of federal agents, patrolling around Kedzie that they can't pronounce with automatic weapons. That's what makes it Chirac. And then this, let me go back one. This was troubling again because this is what he's getting from his other Border Patrol friends. Good job, brother. Glad you're unharmed. You are a legend among agents, and you better fucking know that. Beer's on me. I mean, he's a legend among other Border Patrol agents for shooting a Montessori school teacher. I mean, that, again, is those other agents are the people that are on the ground in Minneapolis. They're the people that are on the ground in Ohio right now. They're the agents that are going to go to the next city. They're the agents that are going to come back here in March to Chicago. And this is how they think of it. They look at their fellow agent who did nothing but shoot a protester as a legend inside their agency. That is not consistent with a respect for human life policy that they can put out in their training manual. And I'd like to go to their next training and see how many beers Agent Exum gets, because again, it's pathetic that they celebrate this. I've worked with federal agents my entire career, and I've never seen any of them celebrate having to shoot somebody. The last thing they want to do when they go to work every day is take their gun out. I don't know what is going on at Border Patrol or DHS, but this is unacceptable, and we should not allow this. So this is the Bavino email. And again, 3:11. Remember, this incident happens at 11:58 a.m. So you're talking less than 4 hours later. There's been no investigation done. And the chief of Border Patrol, while Miramar's in the hospital hooked up to IVs, hopefully going to survive, is emailing the agent saying, good afternoon. I'd like, of all the things, right, I'd like to extend an offer to extend your retirement by age 57. So what message does this send to all the agents? Okay? If you shoot a protester while you're wearing the Border Patrol uniform, the first thing you're going to get within 4 hours of the shooting, first of all, there will be no investigation. Second, there'll be no administrative review. Remember, we were told recently after the Minneapolis shootings that these people would be put on some kind of desk duty while there's a review period. Certainly didn't happen here. What the message that's being sent is you're going to get an email from the highest member of the agency rewarding you, extending your retirement age, in light of his excellent service in Chicago. What did Greg Bavino know about Agent Exum's service in Chicago at that point, right? Of all times, 4 hours after he shoots a woman, that's the excellent service. That's what they're encouraging. So people want to know why no one did CPR to Miss Good when she was dying in the streets of Minneapolis. It's because the agents were probably checking their phone to see what their reward was going to be for killing her, right? That's what it was probably going on, because this is what the culture is at Border Patrol. You're getting emails from the highest levels within hours of a shooting rewarding you. You have much good work left to do, right? What does that mean? We want you to keep going. You've proven yourself. You've proven yourself that you're a shooter, that you're willing to shoot a U.S. citizen, a protester. Good luck, looking forward to you accomplishing the most in illustrative endeavor, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. When Miramar saw this, when I saw this, and I think this is what post-Minneapolis kind of spurred Miramar to say, we got to get this stuff out there so that people can see this government is not handling this stuff the right way. They're encouraging this kind of behavior. They're rewarding this kind of behavior. They're coddling these agents, and they're celebrating them for doing nothing more than shooting peaceful protesters. It's people who are beeping their car horn, right? That's the worst thing they can say about Miramar, is that she was beeping her car horn. And then this, again, is filtered through Chief Bavino, so take it for what it's worth, but he at least informed Agent Exum, again, in the immediate aftermath of this shooting, when Agent Exum is asked by his posse chat, other Border Patrol agents, and again, this is the message that's being sent out to other agents who are out in the field every day with guns. Hey, are they supportive of you now that this happened? Big time. Everybody has been, including Chief Bavino, Chief Banks, Secretary Noem, and El Jefe himself. Again, our read on El Jefe is it's President Trump just giving the order of names here, but that's all according to Bavino. So not only is this the message that's being filtered from Greg Bavino to an agent who just shot somebody, but now it's going out to posse chat and other Border Patrol agents all across the country, and this is what they're seeing. And remember, this is a couple weeks before Minneapolis. So to us, we knew that Minneapolis was going to happen. We knew that it's going to happen again and again and again until somebody says, enough is enough. We aren't going to allow this to happen. We're at least going to put people on desk duty. We're at least going to do an investigation. We're not going to extend retirement ages and say, go out to the next city, you're doing great, you're doing God's work. Okay? That's unacceptable. So again, it took a long time to get this evidence released. We wouldn't have done it probably had it not been for what was going on in Minneapolis. But Miramar, after watching what we've all been watching on TV and knowing what's in the discovery, has kind of seen what's happened here. And it's our position that the country should see this and should see that Greg Bavino, the highest member of Border Patrol, like this is how he responds to one of these shootings within 4 hours. We'll take a few questions if anybody has any.
Chris, you talked a lot about how what happened here also might have impacted what happened in Minneapolis. We know Bavino's been shipped over back to California. Going forward, how do you feel the conduct revealed in these text messages might influence the way that federal agents respond in other cities that they visit post-Bavino?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're hopeful by releasing this that our elected leaders, Miramar was in D.C. I was fortunate enough to go with her last week, and Senator Duckworth and others asked very specific questions and seemed to actually be interested in getting behind this and kind of trying to shift behavior. Again, I think you saw after the George Floyd killings, right? That officer was immediately arrested and punished, and I think that sent the appropriate deterrent, chilling effect to other local officers after the fact. And so here, I think we have the opposite. When you have an officer who shoots a woman like this, and within hours, while she's still in the hospital trying to fight for her life, he's being promoted. I think that sends the opposite message. So it says to these agents out there, hey, I'd love an email from Trump. I'd love an email from Bavino. I'm getting close to retirement. I'd like to get a little more time. Let me shoot this person and see what happens. I think that's what's going on here. So hopefully by releasing this, some elected leaders will see this, which I think they will, and kind of push back on these people.
So on that same note, can you confirm that there is a criminal investigation ongoing into Agent Exum, because the South Bend DOJ has been non-committal commenting on that?
Yeah, so what I can say is the federal prosecutor in this case, Ron DeWald, told the court that one of the reasons they couldn't release this evidence, which apparently is now not the fact, is because there was an open criminal investigation. I made contact with the AUSA in South Bend, confirmed it was about Agent Exum, and confirmed it was about the shooting, right? The FBI still has Miramar's car. We've been given back all the other evidence because charges were dismissed. We gave them consent to keep the car, and they wanted consent to destroy the car so they can do the ballistics analysis that needs to be done. So they were supposed to send me the form that would be a consent to destroy the car. That was like in the days right before the Minneapolis shootings happened. And then since Minneapolis happened, I have not heard back from them. So our concern is that the FBI is not going to do it. That's not going to stop us. If they're not, we will demand the car back. We will have our own experts do the analysis. We will release that report to the public so they can see. But even with the naked eye, you can clearly see that that bullet comes out of the back of the seat. So,
Maggie Vesco with NBC. Would it be okay if we got you in front of microphones?
Maramar's not going to be taking questions.
Not today?
Yep.
Okay.
Chris, what do you hope to achieve with the civil suit?
You want to take that one?
Sure. So what we're going to have to do is start with an FTC claim, or Federal Tort Claims Act, and that has to be sent to the Attorney General for the Department of Homeland Security. Wait 6 months, see if they respond. We cannot file a federal lawsuit until that's done. Once they don't respond, which they won't, we'll file that federal lawsuit, and we're going to go forward on the FTCA claim, and also we're going to try a Bivens claim, which is a claim against federal agents for using excessive force. And those, as many of you may know, is very tailored. The Supreme Court on down has limited those actions going forward. Illinois has passed a law to allow for Bivens claims, but that was passed, recently, and it's not retroactive, so it does not apply to our case. So we'll do the FTCA claim. We'll wait our 6 months. We'll hear nothing. We'll file the lawsuit. We'll go forward. At a minimum, we'll have a bench trial in the Northern District of Illinois in front of these federal judges, who I'm confident, based on their track record, based on my experience with them, based on what has occurred in this case, that we will get a fair trial, and we hold this officer accountable. And we intend to fast forward this case. We want to be in trial by October.
Is it frustrating that the federal officers are held to a different standard than if this were just a local county?
Yeah, he was a former ASA. I was a former Cook County State's Attorney. I ran a Torts and Civil Rights Division. I spent 7 years defending the Cook County Sheriff's Police. I've stand shoulder to shoulder with officers longer than I've been a plaintiff's attorney. I know what use of force is. I know what deadly force is. I know what's appropriate. And so I know how they can be held accountable because I've sued them, I've defended them, right? And now you have not just tort immunity, not just qualified immunity, but additional immunities and additional avenues to block claims against these federal agents, which has got to change. And so Illinois has done that. Other states have done that. Hopefully the federal government will do that. But again, we have an avenue forward. We will take that avenue forward. And I'll take my chances with the federal district court judges in Chicago any day of the week.
Chris,
So the FTCA claim would be against DHS specifically, any other agencies?
The officer, yeah.
The officer himself?
Yeah. It'll be focused on the officer. It'll be focused on his actions. There'll be some other facts that will come into play, of course, their policies, their training, his complete disregard of that. But it'll be against the officer himself.
Okay, so my understanding was FTCA claims are against the agencies. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
That's different. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know Miramar won't speak about this, but I'm talking about the State of the Union here. Looking forward to that. What are we hoping to accomplish there when you arrive there?
Look, one, it's an honor for her, right? As we were speaking earlier today, I mean, very few people get to go to the State of the Union, and I think it's appropriate for Miramar. She actually got multiple invitations while in D.C. She accepted Congressman Garcia's early invitation, and he has been a supporter of hers from the beginning. So she's excited to go with him. But I think, look, prior to this, as Miramar said in her statement in D.C., she supported law enforcement, like I think most of us do. I think it's important for her to sort of go to D.C., which is the heart of the people who are putting out these attacks against her, and show that she is a fighter, right? That they haven't killed her, one, and that they haven't prevented her from standing up for herself. I mean, most people, again, who have their indictment dismissed are like, I'm done. I'm out of here. But don't poke the bear. I mean, Miramar, to her credit, has said, this isn't about me. It's about the Good family. It's about the Preddy family. It's about other people that they can see what Chief Bavino was saying in the immediate aftermath, so they can put pressure on elected leaders to either cut funding to ICE or do other things to make sure that these agents who are on these text chains about "Here's on me, you're a fucking legend," right? That they're not the people that are being sent out on the streets. And if she doesn't do it, I don't know who is. So Not many people have survived these shootings.
I mean, a lot about, obviously, for, getting this released for you was hearing that label of domestic terrorist. But to your point that people see and hear what they want to see these days,
Yeah.
do you believe that you at least get to do that in part with this release?
This, I mean, look, again, I think the clearest examples are the 5 shots through the windshield. Like, I don't care who you are or what network you watch. That's just, you can look at the photos we've released and see that's not true. And I think we were boxed in and we couldn't move, so we had to get out and shoot. You can see from that video that's just simply not true. So, so much of the world right now is divided on, should Miramar have been following them? Should she have been beeping her horn? That's besides the point. At the end of the day, you have federal agents who are lying about what actually happened, right? If the truth, you don't need to lie if the truth is okay, right? They had to draw in those 3 cars because they know what they did to her was so unacceptable that even the most right-wing news observer would say, geez, they really overreacted. They probably shouldn't have shot her. And then people should see that email from Bavino being like, do I really want my leaders of Border Patrol to be rewarding officers before any investigation is done? Again, do the investigation. And if you want to come out and say, this was a good shoot, that's fine. But do not promote agents while the woman they just shot is still in the hospital fighting for her life without any actual objective investigation. That's what this is about.
For people who they've heard phrases like absolute immunity applied in Minneapolis, and regardless of how they feel about the crackdown politically, pragmatically, what do you hope to accomplish with your case, with your whether it's tied to the officer, the agencies, and what do you think maybe is realistic under this administration that will actually happen?
That comment of absolute immunity was from J.D. Vance, which is totally incorrect. He's walked it back as much as somebody in this administration possibly could, in that he just avoided the question. But no, we can go forward. We can hold them accountable. We do have avenues. It's not the easiest. It's not geared towards justice. But with these these facts, this client, and we'll hold them accountable.
What does that look like, though? I mean,
it looks like the FTCA claim and the lawsuit that goes with it, and then it looks like a kind of a parallel civil rights claim under the Bivens exception. And it'll be in federal court in Chicago, and we're going to actually make it a little bit more expansive, and that we're going to try and make some good law, too, in this case. To have some of these issues taken up on the 7th Circuit and beyond, to try and establish a precedent so these cases are easier to be brought and go forward. But we do have a path forward.
So just to be clear with this, since we have to wait at least 6 months for the federal lawsuit,
Yes.
Does that mean that the earliest that you would be filing that would be maybe late summer?
So we are going to mail and email the FTCA complaint today. We will provide that to you. It's a 1-sheet form. There's a narrative that goes along with it as an attachment. That narrative is in our client's voice about what she observed. But it is not like your typical 30-page complaint that you would see that would be electronically filed with Cook County or federal court. So yes, we'll release that after we send it to the Attorney General for the Department of Homeland Security, and then we're going to wait our 6 months and we're going to file a lawsuit.
Is there any danger that an executive order could cut your paths off? If the president decides to grant this kind of immunity, is that something that could eliminate this process?
I haven't heard him actually, deciding to or proposing an absolute immunity.
Reviewable as well.
Yeah, listen, anything is possible, right?
I didn't mean to plant a seed.
No. Yeah, exactly. I don't put a thought as mine, but I don't think that would be possible.
Can you be more specific about the kind of precedent that you're hoping to set with this?
Well, so, there's Bivens decisions going back 30 years, and they're narrower and narrower as the cases have gone forward, and it cuts off different individuals' pathway to court. In this case, it's a Fourth Amendment. It's clear use of excessive force. We believe that despite Bivens being very narrow, we still have a path forward under that claim, because this is unjustified deadly force in every way, shape, or form. But we also will go forward with the FTCA claim in kind of parallel.
Can you describe how this has impacted Marimar's life and what you will be seeking in this suit 6 months from now?
So Marimar has gone through everything that Chris walked her through. She's shot 7 times. She almost bled out to death. She was waiting for medical care as she was interrogated by DHS agents. Emotionally, she's suffered throughout. She's still, suffering pain, limited use of her hand, her legs. And this release of the evidence that just came out on Friday, this is the first time she's seen a lot of it over the weekend. And this was just re-traumatization of her going through this. And it's not so much reliving what happened, it's the fact that she sees federal agents, government officials, all the way up to the highest levels, willing to lie about what happened to her as a U.S. citizen and justify the attempt murder by one of their agents. So the trauma that she suffers is physical and emotional. As far as seeking damages, we can only, as Chris said, there should be an investigation. This agent should be off the streets. I believe he should be criminally prosecuted. We have none of those powers. We can hold them accountable monetarily, and we'll be asking for damages in the tens of millions of dollars when we do get our day in court.
On that note, you've mentioned the U.S. Attorney's Office in South Bend doing an investigation. It sounds like it's been weeks, though, since you've heard from them. Has there been any contact, communication, reach out with the State Attorney's Office?
To date, there has not been officially. I mean, we will get there if necessary. My hope is that the FBI is still the FBI that I used to work with, and that they'll eventually respond. I mean, they have not approached us to give us the car back, so I'm still hopeful that somebody there is going to do the investigation that we've been told is going to happen with the Minnesota shootings. If at some point, if nothing happens, we're going to reach out and say, we'll take the car back. We'll do our own investigation. But again, as a former federal prosecutor, my hope is that the FBI will not completely abandon its duty to investigate this as they should and as they started to. And again, they were lied to, right? I mean, the agent who took the report from Agent Exum about shooting 5 times through the windshield, I mean, he now has clear proof that's not true. The agent who took the report from his partner that said we couldn't go forward, we were boxed in, he now has conclusive proof that's not true. I mean, these guys are special agents with the FBI. They're investigators. They should be like, it's a 1001, right, crime to lie to a federal agent, even if you are a federal agent. So somebody should be doing their job, and we're hopeful that that will happen.
Has anyone been in touch with the families of Renee Good or Alex Reddy about the release of this evidence?
We have not. Miramar was able to meet with the brothers of Renee Good in D.C. last week, and I know that meant a lot to her. But we have not coordinated with them other than our public statements that part of the reason that Miramar is doing this is to kind of give those families sort of a window that unfortunately right now they don't have into who these people are that killed their family member.
Marimar, en este punto, ¿tú temes por tu seguridad?
Miramar's not going to take any questions, okay? But thank you. Is there anything else before we head out?
One more question about possible avenues. Would you have any kind of claim against DHS officials for slander or, for all the lies? If you could prove that they knew what they were saying wasn't true, is that some kind of case you could bring?
We're going to explore it, but to Charlie's point, the immunities are pretty extensive, and we'll put it in the complaint, whether we can get it passed, motion dismissed, and the like. That's kind of up in the air. But it's part of the story. It's the truth. They lied. So it's going to go into our complaint.
It's Mike, right?
Michael.
Michael. And I'm just getting a little bit into the weeds. I'm trying to take notes at the same
Sure.
time. But today is a civil lawsuit, and then there's a federal lawsuit
So,
in 6 months?
so today we'll be filing the FTCA claim, Federal Tort Claims Act complaint. And it's a one-page form that just has real basic information that's literally typed into a preset form, along with a narrative typed out that's through Marmar's perspective of what occurred. It says, talks about her physical injuries, some of the eyewitnesses, and that's the extent of it. It's a total of 5 pages. It's not your typical lawsuit that we'd file that would be 30 pages with, facts and allegations laid out.
Today is the first step towards a federal lawsuit?
Today is the first step.
Okay, and you mentioned there you were going to see tens of millions of dollars in this case.
Of course, yeah.
All right, thank you.
There are at least 2 other cases in Chicago that are filing similar torts cases. Have you been in contact with those individuals about how the process has been moving in their cases at all?
You want to do a shout out to So I don't know exactly which attorneys you're talking about.
One of them would be for Alderwoman Jessie Fuentes. She filed a torts claim a couple months ago, alleging use of force from a federal agent who arrested her inside a hotel for trying, a hospital.
Sure.
And then another one is a protester, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So, this is just another example of other individuals trying to pursue the same avenue that you all are.
The answer is no, we haven't talked to them. If they want to call, coordinate and actually help each other out, we're all for that, but we have not talked to them.
Chris and Michael, could you again state your first and last names and spell them
Sure.
for us?
Chris Parenti, CHRISPARENTE.
Michael Gallagher, GALLAGHER.
I usually speak more, but I'm not today. Damon, DAMONCHERONIS.
And again, we do want to thank the press. I mean, the reason that this matters, right, the trial is typically where we put this stuff out there so that people can see it. Obviously, by dismissing the case, which we're thankful for, we didn't get a chance to do that. But, I mean, to the points about what are we trying to do here, by putting this out into the public sphere, which is what you guys are doing for us, it lets those people who are watching this stuff on TV and who end up going to the ballot box in November see, okay, is this what I want my government to be doing? Yes or no? And so thank you guys for being here and for putting this information out there. And I think people hopefully can look at it, make up their own minds, and to the extent that they don't want a government who's willing to do this to a Montessori school teacher, maybe they will impact the way that they vote in November. So thank you guys.
Can I just say a basic question? Yo no le tengo miedo a nadie. A lo único que le tengo miedo es a Dios. Es todo.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
As far as logistics too, I know you guys.
Sorry, it's, I write for a legal affairs.
Yeah. No, of course.